Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the HerStoryTV and the HerStory podcast. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the show. Please tell everybody your name, where you're based, how old you are, and share your story with us today.
Hello, my name is Dr. Nicole Davis. I'm based in Baltimore, Maryland in the United States, and I'm 52 years old. And let me tell you a little bit about me. I'm originally from Akron, Ohio. There I was raised with my mom, and I have two younger sisters. My father was in and out of our lives, and that's really what's most important about my story is that I come from a very dysfunctional background. Although my mother and dad were together off and on for over 30 years, they never got married. And so my experience with relationships and what marriage looked like was my father in and out of our lives on drugs, in and out of prison, my mother emotionally detached as an only child for 12 and a half years before she had my younger sisters. I watched my mother try to make that relationship work. And there were times when she left me by myself, where she sold our belongings, all to try to make that relationship work. And so even though I thought I would be an only child, my mother had promised me she wouldn't have any more children. It was after my other sisters came along that I realized how much bitterness I had in my heart towards my mother and my father. I felt like my mom didn't care about me. I felt like my dad didn't care about me. And so right around middle school, when my middle sister was born, and definitely by the time my younger sister was born, I had just become very resentful. And I tried to do everything I thought I was big and bad enough to do at a very young age. I was drinking, I was smoking, I was running around, sneaking out of the house, sneaking boys in the house. I didn't care. I didn't care what happened. And I think the good thing about it is I always had a very bubbly personality. So people liked me, my teachers liked me, but I took advantage of all of that because the people that mattered the most to me, my mother and my father, were not there in a way to help me understand who I was and where I was going and what I wanted to accomplish in life. So as soon as I could, I wanted to get away. And in getting away meant going to the military. I went to the military straight out of high school, and I went into the Navy. And in going to the Navy, I found myself in Keflavik, Iceland. So it was 1991. I graduated from high school in 1988. But it was 1991 when I was in Keflavik, Iceland. And I come from a background where we didn't go to church. I can recall going to church at times. But as a family, we didn't talk about God. We didn't go to church. But I had a natural interest in God. So when I was in the military and I got to Keflavik, Iceland, I was at a point in my life where I felt very tired and run down. I felt like I had already lived a very full life. By the time I was 21 years old, and by that time I felt like I was 45 years old. I had been with so many different men, and I knew that I had no respect, no self-respect. And I knew at that time that I needed a change in my life. I didn't know what it was, but I took that opportunity, being in this new duty station, to do things differently. So I was making decisions like, okay, I'm not going to the clubs. I'm not going to mess around with any guys. I just want to get my life together as I'm getting ready to transition out of the military. And there was a change that I needed. I just didn't realize the change was God. But it was in Keflavik, Iceland that I found God. And at the same time, the man that I am now married to and have been married to for over 30 years. He was the very first person that I met at my barracks who became my friend. And then we both gave our lives to the Lord. And that's actually a whole story in and of itself, how we came to get on that journey together. But he actually grew up in the church and had rededicated his life to the Lord in the States at the same time that I was in Keflavik, Iceland. He was going to his father's funeral at the same time that I was dedicating my life to the Lord. And so when he came back and we got back together, it was very different. Our focus was different. The things that we did together was different. We were going to Bible study together now. And we fell in love and got married. So we actually met, got engaged, and got married all in the same year. I know it's crazy, but it was God, and I knew it was God. And God has shown himself faithful all these years. And what's important about that to me is because without God, the way I grew up feeling very hopeless, feeling very rejected, and I didn't know where my life was going. But once I found the Lord and I was able to read the Bible and get instruction and to be around people who also had a sense of purpose and identity, it changed everything in how I thought. It changed everything about how I lived. And so my husband and I, from there, began to create a vision for our lives and what we wanted as a couple and how we wanted to raise our families. My husband, his parents were married, but his mom, or his dad, left his mom when he was young and married another woman and raised that woman's children. And so with both of us coming from dysfunctional backgrounds without the strong examples of a healthy family, of a healthy marriage, it was this book, the Bible, that really taught us how to be together, how to love one another, and how to begin to start raising a family. And so we started that family in Iceland, or in Spain. We left Iceland, went to Spain, and that's where we had our first son. And then after a few years in Spain, we both got out of the military and moved to Maryland, which is his hometown. We came here, and that's where we had our second son. And so we have two sons. One is 28 and one is 24. Now you have to remember, growing up, based on the life that I had growing up, I never saw myself having a healthy family. I never saw myself actually being married. It was nothing I ever envisioned for me. I didn't see myself raising children with a husband. And I emphasize all of this because it is my family, and it is everyone's family. That is the backbone, that is the roots, the foundation of everything that we are. And so as we were raising our family, we were talking about the vision that we have for our own lives. He wanted to go to school. I wanted to go to school. He ended up, and we both did so. My husband ended up getting his JD. He has a family law practice. And I ended up getting my PhD. My undergrad is in social work, but my PhD is in conflict analysis and resolution. And so with that, together, we started our first organization, Empower to Engage, specifically about the family. And so over those years, I always talk about, it was my social work degree that helped me understand human development and the levels and the process of what we go through to mature and to come in a place where we can now make good decisions and have healthy, thriving relationships. It was that education that showed me that no matter what my past was, and I think between my education and my reading of the word, it showed me that I didn't have to I wasn't stuck. Like, just because that was my parents' story or that's how I grew up, that did not have to define what my future looked like. It didn't have to dictate how far I could go in my life. And so that gave me such a sense of hope to know that I'm equipped with information and a desire for something that I had never seen before. And so the fact that Tony, my husband, and I were on the same page with that fueled us and strengthened us to walk this journey together, to create, to parent, to love one another in a way that would help us establish something very beautiful, very loving. And now, as we look at our family, we look at our children, we look at what we've been able to accomplish, we know that it's not just us, that anyone can do this. Anyone can have this. And so that goes back to the work that we do with Empower to Engage. In addition to that, we're authors. We've written many books. We have books that are on marriage, on parenting, and on leadership development. We call them the Done Right series. And that gives their devotionals, daily devotionals. So it's marriage done right is hard work, but it's worth it. Leadership done right is hard work, but it's worth it. And parenting done right is hard work. We've started our own children's book, and it's for teaching children life skills, growing up with Bendy the squirrel. So we're doing that. And then women's empowerment is something that's really near and dear to me as well. And I've written a book called Eve, Where Are You? Confronting Toxic Practices Against the Advancement of Women. So that's a little bit about who I am and my story.
You have had an amazing background. What I love with what you've done is you've clearly illustrated that one's beginning does not define where you end up. If anything, your beginnings helped you create the life that you truly wanted. You know, you didn't see that family unit as a child, but both you and your husband were able to recreate that in this beautiful future that you created together. You know, when you talk about being married for 30 years, what is the secret sauce to your success?
One of the things that we tell people is that we were friends first. And that is so important because all these years, like we always talk, we have always talked, and we just like being in each other's presence. And I think that is what is most important, because in that talking, you dream together, you get to learn each other's idiosyncrasies as you are learning yourself. And you learn what's important to that person and how to support one another. And so that has been the secret sauce. Our friendship is at the foundation of who we are as a couple.
I absolutely love it. Now let's go into women's empowerment. As you know, that is my passion. Empowering women in multiple ways. This new book that you have written is focused on women's empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
Take us back to the writing of the book. What was the source of inspiration for it? And what can women get when they read this new book?
That's a great question. So the source of the inspiration for this book goes all the way back to the writing of my dissertation. So when I started in school, I thought I was going to write on leadership. But as I was doing the research on that, and it's actually in the introduction of the book where I talk about how God really arrested me from a conversation that I had with my son that then put me on this journey to help women. Because for us, it's very difficult for us to put ourselves first. And it starts with the fact that we're not even sure who we are. And God made that very clear to me, that women needed support in that area. They needed support in knowing who they are, that they're valued, and that they have a purpose. And so he gave me the burden very deep in my soul to create information for women to be able to utilize, not just read, but to really find themselves. So the book is a hybrid book. It's part spiritual, it's part and academic, it's part therapeutic. There's so many components to it because it really helps the woman see herself from the inside out with a biblical worldview. And that's where it begins, like understanding how you were created, the magnificence of who you are, and that you are born for a time and a purpose that was already predetermined before you got here. And so we have to discover that. And so that's the premise of the writing of the book. And so when the dissertation was so head heavy that I had to then figure out, okay, how do I go from all of this academic conversation to in layman's terms, where people can read it and get it and understand it in a way that will make sense and where they will enjoy reading it. And the response has been amazing in how women are using this book and how it's changing their lives so they can measure how they are becoming better or thinking differently or now being more courageous in how they're facing every day.
I love that. So leadership, what is your definition of leadership, especially when it pertains to women?
Yeah, so leadership is really having a servant's heart. And it's not the world's definition. You know, when you can think of leadership from the standpoint of having influence or having power. But real leadership is serving. And when you're serving, what you're doing is being an example, someone that people can look to or look at and then model their lives after it. Well, that's exactly what Jesus did in the Bible. People were angry with him because of his service to other people, because of his interest in other people and his love for people. And so true leadership is being willing to allow your life to be an example in how it is that you serve and take care of others. Can you imagine if we all did that? The difference that we could make in the lives of others if we allowed our lives to be an example. And that is an example in how it is that we treat and care for one another.
I love that. I was watching a TED Talk the other day on leadership, and the speaker was describing how the true leader is the one who can identify the next leader who's following, that first person who steps up and emulates you, copies you, does what you do. So it's all about empowerment by the sound of it to me, that when we can plant a seed in another woman so they can see their own greatness, then as a leader, you have really done your job.
Oh, yes. Yes, you are absolutely right. Do you know, when we see others that look like us and we can use that as fuel to tell ourselves what we are capable of, that is so easy to do because we don't even have to think about it. It's just in being true to ourselves, being true to what we desire, being true to our passions. And that is enough to make a difference in another person's life without putting forth any effort. So a lot of women think, you know, you say you're a leader. Oh, I'm not a leader. Because they think a leader has to look or act or do certain things. When a leader, first and foremost, just take control of yourself. Just be good to yourself. And by leading yourself, and that's one of the devotionals that we have, leading from the inside out is leadership done right is hard work. But by leading yourself, whether it's your children, whether it's friends and family, co-workers, people in your community, in your church, in your organizations, they will see just the freedom you have in being able to speak your mind, to go after what matters to you, to stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves. That's contagious and it can multiply. And I love that because it takes no effort at all, just being true to you.
Yeah, you have to be the possibility that other people can see in the world. I love that.
Yes.
Absolutely love it. Now, if I was to take you into the future and you're now 100 years old, you're sitting in your rocking chair surrounded by your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, your dogs and your cats, and you're reflecting back on this amazing life that you have lived, despite where you started, where you have ended up with your husband and your family. If you could have a conversation with that future you, what would you say to this wise woman who's led you to this point?
In all my awe of her, if I knew anything about her background, the first thing I would say to her is thank you. Thank you so much for breaking the generational curse in your family. You didn't accept mediocrity and the dysfunctional family environment that should have made you a statistic instead of a success. Like, you really made a choice to fight against what could have been so easily for you to settle into. And then I would say thank you for not giving up on yourself, even though you didn't see the examples, even though there was no one to support your ambitious drive, that you still kept going. You didn't give up on yourself or your dreams, that you insisted on having a better life. And I would say and let her know that she is an amazing example of strength, of faith, and of love. And I believe that God, I would tell her, I believe that God is pleased with your service both to Him and to humankind by simply being true to you. And when I say that, Gertrude, about being true to you, it's true to you in the sense that we all have a sense of who we are. It's people around us, starting with our parents, of course, then our teachers or coaches or those that we meet, that help us to discover and to allow that to come out and to blossom. So being true to like the things that you enjoy. So as a parent, I could think about parents, they want certain things for their children, or they have certain vocations that they want their children to go into. And a lot of times children know early on the things that they like to do. But it's up to the parents to really see that and then say, "Oh, I noticed that you really enjoy this," or "You talk a lot about that," and to allow them to do that. So in being true to you is, what is it that brings you happiness or peace? Or what is it that really gets you angry? And to help people discover who they are. And when you get to that place, it's just a different way of living when you are pursuing the things that matter the most to you.
I love it. And really, your life purpose lies in the things that you are passionate about.
Yes.
That's why it's easy. That's why Steve Jobs can create computer systems and be really good at what he does. To him, it's
Yes.
not work, it's
Yeah.
play, because he's really good at it. So that's really good advice to anybody out there who has kids, who has young ones, who are trying to find themselves. Your purpose lies in your passion. So let's go back to this amazing book. Empowertoengage.com is your website that's running at the bottom of the screen. What can women get from this book? Why are you inspiring us to buy the book?
Yeah, so there are a couple things that are really important. I want to equip women with strategies to advance in every area. So when you look at this book, it's going to talk to you about what is the conflict, like what are the issues that women are dealing with. It's going to talk about what can you work on. So first of all, really learning your identity, understanding what your issues are when it comes to other women or other men, and then helping you to understand how do you feel about change? Like, what are your thoughts about power? And then what's your mindset? What's your perspective on things? And so as a woman takes this journey to do really the self-assessment and the self-analysis that's necessary to understand who she is, it is in that she will be able to come out of that and say, okay, I know I want to do this, or I want to go in this direction. So the book will help her really understand her value and her worth, her sense of purpose, and the fact that she is the only one that can hold herself back from becoming or accomplishing whatever it is she sets her heart and mind to do.
I love that. I love that. And that's the power within that you were talking about earlier.
Yes, yes, yes. And it goes back, I can just say really quickly, with the name of our organization, Empower to Engage. So you can be informed, but I want you to be informed to then go and do. So we're going to give you what you need. And then the next step is then to go and accomplish, or to conquer, or to take, to fight, to stand, whatever it is that you believe. You are now strengthened and you are now emboldened to go and create whatever the life is that you desire. Empower you to now engage, to get involved, to not sit back anymore and wait for somebody else, but now you step into the arena, you step into the game, you become a part of the solution and making the difference in other people's lives, first starting with yours, and then allowing yourself to be used as a vessel to make the difference in other people's lives.
Oh, I love that. Absolutely love that. So as you know, the Her Story Circle is a social impact movement. And I'm always wanting to know what the women in our circle are doing in their own communities, other parts of the world, to bring about social impact. What social impact projects are you involved in?
So I'm a part of a couple of organizations. One where is social innovation, where we're actually teaching people within the community how to engage in the community and showing them how to be leaders. So whether they're working on programs with the school or with those who are poor or needy within their communities, getting them associated and in partnerships with organizations that they can now do that work with them. So this one particular organization, we're getting ready to do trainings in September. As a matter of fact, it's a 5-week training helping those who are coming straight out of college, or maybe they're not in college, not sure what they want to do, but they still want to get involved in something. Just teaching them the fundamentals of how to become a valuable asset in your community. So that's one thing that I'm doing. The other thing is I work with a children's organization that helps children with reading, providing them interaction with other children so that they can be inspired by each other and how it is that they engage. And then through that, we're helping them to become smarter, stronger in areas of science, math, and their natural proclivities of whatever interests they have. So there's another organization that we're doing that through.
Fantastic. Nicole, thank you so much for this interview. It was wonderful meeting you. I'm glad the connection held up for us to be able to go from beginning to end with no hiccups. But absolutely inspiring. Love what you're doing. We've got your website running at the bottom of the screen. So if anybody out there needs support, needs mentoring, needs help, or if you have a young person in your life who is lost and is needing direction, please get in touch with Nicole. And it is about empowerment to engage. You can get all the information in the world, but until you start taking action,
yes,
it's absolutely useless to you. So thank you so much, Nicole. It was wonderful meeting you and doing this interview today.
Thank you. I enjoyed being with you. I appreciate it.
And thank you to everybody who's tuned in. The Her Story movement is attracting some phenomenal women with amazing and inspiring stories So tune in again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing woman. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And Nicole, thanks again for the interview. Bye for
Thank
now,
you.
everybody.